Call the meeting to order. First item, are there any adjustments to the agenda? And I've got two. You received in your packet preliminary design for Farley Park, the old Austin property. Wanted to put that on as a discussion item. It was intended to be. And hopefully we can do that right after we hear from the Conservation and Recreation District presentation. And then also, York requested that we put on an item to consider holding a public hearing to decide whether we want to apply for a community development block grant, disaster recovery grant at our September 26th meeting?
22, I think.
22nd meeting. And maybe we can put that right after the wastewater grant, if there's no objection. Any other changes? Okay, anybody here for public comment? All right, then we'll start with the first item. Mac and Bob, I'm assuming you're here for the Ayersville Village Master Plan presentation?
Right, and Anne Marie's on the screen there for you.
So if you guys want to step up to the table, it'd be great. You don't have to.
It's a steering committee thing.
Okay.
Well, welcome.
You're welcome to.
So do you want me to start, Anne Marie?
Sure,
Or-
you can start now.
Or if you've got something planned, go for it. No?
Well, I was just going to say that, included in the packet are the three scenarios that the SE group put together. And where we were at was that we presented those three scenarios to Shannon Morrison, and we were hoping to get some kind of direction from her in terms of being able to facilitate the permitting process easier in terms of, okay, now that we've got a planning document, master plan, can we have some guidance in the permitting process? Well, we did receive some advice into contacting someone within the Army Corps of Engineer, but we were hoping for more. And so, as you can see, we submitted the letter to Shannon in the packet. And right now, we're in the process of taking next steps.
So that's a draft of a letter, not an already sent letter, correct?
It is sent now,
It is,
isn't
it
it?
is.
It is sent, okay,
As of this afternoon.
alrighty.
So Mac, if you'd like to add anything
Sure.
else, I thought that was
So
my summary.
basically, we're here to kind of keep you guys in the loop, so you know what we're doing.
Exactly.
If you'd like a more extensive presentation from our consultants, SE Group, I'm sure we can arrange that. It'll be longer, but basically, I think in that letter, you've got the one sheet summary of everything that we're up to, our objectives, our the core elements of the master plan and where we are in terms of status, and Anne Marie just explained the most important part of where we are in terms of interacting with state officials. I think that that SE and our committee in general has been very conscientious about preserving as much of the wetland as we can, and as the letter explains, the plan that we've come up with would preserve 100% of the I think they're called critical wetlands, and 85% of the kind of medium importance wetland, low functioning wetlands.
Well,
So we would only.
If I can interrupt, Mac, I believe it's 85% of all total wetlands. That was our goal, was 100% of all high-functioning wetlands and preserving 85% of all the
Everything,
wetlands.
yes. Thank you. We are, this process that we're going through was at the suggestion of Shannon Morrison, who's the wetlands coordinator. She, basically there's been a pause on development in Irisville until there was a master plan in place. So now we've got a master plan, and we're, as Anne Marie just said, we're hoping to get some kind of endorsement of the master plan and some recognition of, okay, now that we've looked at the whole picture, how can we apply that to individual properties, as opposed to what Shannon's current response has been, is that, okay, well, now we're just back to, let's look at each property individually on a case-by-case basis, which seems like a backward step. But anyway, we're confident that by going the next step, we'll be able to resolve this. But I mean, as you I think know, the goal here is to create more housing, create an activity hub for commercial and residential, make it pedestrian friendly, and live with the wetlands, preserve the wetlands. Most of the development is planned to be along the slow road, and I've just brought one copy of each of these scenarios that were just mentioned. One is the low impact concept, one is the moderate build out concept, and the other one is the full build out concept, which basically just extends farther and farther down the slow road towards the Big Pig Theater.
Mac, would you mind? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the idea of actually creating a village feel, we feel that one block would really not do it, although if we're limited just to the one block, of course we'll take it. But 2 blocks would compose a village atmosphere, and 3 would really reinforce it. But I did also want to add, we not only focused on the slow road, we do have areas scattered throughout Irisville where we're proposing potential sites of housing, as you can see by the colored rectangles on the plan.
So that's the brief presentation. Happy to entertain questions. And as I say, if they're in-depth questions that require some expertise, we'll have to get back to you with SE's input.
With regard to the loss of wetlands, is the proposal to develop them, which it is, but does it require mitigation? My understanding is that you would require the replacement of whatever the functions are.
We're proposing mitigation. We're proposing mitigation of any flood concern as well, runoff.
Is that enhanced wetlands elsewhere, or created wetlands?
Ironically, it probably, whatever mitigation we offer, this is what I think the Army Corps suggested, would probably be in the form of actual compensation, just money, which would not be spent here because this is not deemed important enough wetland to improve. So it would probably be spent elsewhere, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we would plan, our master plan proposes to implement mitigation.
And we're also, I mean, any sort of impacts that this might bring would be to, coming from the Arrowwood report in 2021, where they examined the Irisville wetlands. We are solely looking at potential impacts to what were deemed low functioning wetlands. And as far as we know, they might not be performing, and they might have no functionality right now whatsoever. We do know that Irisville as a whole is functioning as it should. Its flood resiliency is strong. Its absorptive capacity, I believe, was estimated around 50 million gallons or something like that, if I recall. And I think we've seen, because in recent memory, that Irisville has not had any flooding issues. So that's why we think our proposal is very gentle. We're offering to preserve the high-functioning wetlands in perpetuity and to impact, and that's impact. And by impact, we're not just talking about developing the low-functioning wetlands, but it could just be even within the buffers to those low-functioning wetlands. So we're trying to be as gentle as possible, and I think the request going to Shannon is fair, and I think it presents a real de minimis impact.
Thanks, and I just wanted to compliment you and whoever else worked on the letter. It's really clear and great outline of the issues. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is we're really, as you see with the wastewater and Act 181, we're meeting these state objectives, these state priorities, and we're meeting them in some instances with state money. And so we feel like here, we're not quite getting the give that we had hoped, especially at the outset of this project, when we had the blessing of Shannon to go forward. So, we'll see. I think we'll be coming back with another update to the select board once we have further clarity on how to proceed.
I thought it was a well-written letter as well. So I'm trying to understand what her response was. She just said that that you'll go a site-by-site permit going forward.
So she asked for a master plan, and then after that.
And not even really that, Brian. I mean, it was the first response via email from the committee was basically a cut and paste of rules and regulations we were already aware of. And then she forwarded us, recommended we reach out to the Army Corps, which we did. So it was really not much of a response or no sort of clarity given. And what we're trying to get to is what is the end result of this? If we come up with a master plan that preserves the high-functioning wetlands in perpetuity, and we have some small development that would have a de minimis impact to the low-functioning wetlands, like what can we achieve with that on the back end? If we have a developer coming here who wants to pursue some of these designs, are they going to have to go through every single hoop, or where does this get us? And that's kind of where we predicated the project on. And when we didn't get that clarity, we thought we needed to respond with something more.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think we didn't get any acknowledgement of the master plan itself. It's like,
This was kind of
she
the
asked
point.
for it,
Yeah,
and didn't
kind of the point.
say.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I think, who knows where this is going to go after once it gets resolved and finished. But in my opinion, what we want to do is figure out how, as a town, we can make it easy for someone, a developer, individual landowners, or whoever, to actually implement some of this stuff. And to the extent that from the state we could get an endorsement of the master plan, okay, the overall concept is good, and if you do these things, if you follow through with preserving the critical wetlands in perpetuity, and if you put various improvements in place, et cetera, then we can look at individual applications for buildings. But I mean, that's where I would hope we would get to eventually.
Well, actually, to build on what Mac was just saying, is that we've put together a draft letter to make recommendations for what we can do further, including conserving remaining wetlands through conservation easements, 1. 2, work with other conservation nonprofit organizations. And 3, have additional studies. Part 2, as we've talked about having a part 2, which would be studying the wetlands above what Arrowwood did. Yes, Arrowwood gave us a great report to tell us what we have, but it didn't include projects, actual recommendations for conservation, restoration, and/or enhancement. And so that seems like that would be, if we offered that we could get another municipal planning grant to do this as phase 2, that may help with the whole process.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I'd like authentic community engagement. and I know that your group has worked really hard at that. I'm not sure you've been here to discuss this in front of the board since the one at, I think, the Village Meeting House. Like you have the 3 scenarios in front of us. Was there somewhat of a consensus, or what was the thought?
I would say, I mean, first, we've had 2 public meetings, I think very well attended, and people voted with little stickers, and I believe that pretty much everyone went for the maximum, whatever it's called, the full build-out
Expanded,
concept, which I think is what we should push for. I mean, obviously, we'll respond to whatever we have to respond to from permitting officials, and we can dial it back if we need to. But I think in terms of the goals that Anne Marie was talking about, creating an actual village with some vibrancy and life to it, the full build-out is the ideal way to go.
Would the concept of conservation easements, would those be gifted, granted by property owners, or paid for by the town?
Well, that's a question. You know, we haven't engaged specifically the property owners as such, although some of them are on our committee, but
And some of them made a suggestion that that's where we could begin.
but I think that is the question to ultimately is how much do we as a town want to help some of these things along, and to what extent are we just kind of paving the way with the state officials so that when somebody comes up with a specific project that they want to do, there's a context within which to do that. It seems to me that the perpetual easements and the various conservation measures that we want to take is going to take a collective agreement of the property owners, which I don't think is going to be hard to get. Maybe I'm kidding myself.
No, I think there's only really a handful of property owners in Irisville that
Yeah.
would affect. And we are, Friends of the Mad River is on the steering committee, and as of the meeting last week, offered to be actively engaged in this process in the aftermath of the plan as well, so. And I think that once, as we work towards a final deliverable towards the end of the year, I think we will come back, we'll have our planning consultant here, and maybe we can give the select board a kind of an in-depth presentation on all that, if you all are.
And I was involved, I attended several of the early meetings, I haven't attended some of the recent ones. Is there a projection of a mix of land use? And what I'm specifically wondering about wastewater capacity. This is all contingent, obviously, on wastewater
Yes.
system.
They're aware of and took into consideration that I believe the number was 70 units, right? 70 units of housing approximately.
That's what,
Yep,
Yeah.
a mixture of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom,
Yeah.
70 units was
Um,
used as the basis.
Plus
of
some commercial, I can't remember the percentage.
So this would anticipate all of the wastewater capacity being used for this project?
As a full build out, that's the way.
And I've expressed a concern that I think there are other development opportunities in Irisville that I don't know that we're gonna say we're holding off on your development project because we hope that this guy someday will do something on their property. So that is a reality, I
Yep.
think,
Yeah.
going forward.
And that's a lot,
Great.
can I just, do you mind? That's kind of a lot of the reason, like, this week we're doing this, the path is coming about co-location in a couple weeks to talk to us, all in preparation of the wastewater, community meeting that we're having September 24th, so that we're aware of, because these are all policy decisions for the select board, and so, like, where capacity is gonna go, et cetera, and so, yes, so, I'm glad you brought that up, because I hadn't thought about it today.
Yeah. I think the 70 number, I mean, we made SE aware of the fact that that's what the maximum amount was, so there's no point in designing a master plan that's gonna have 200 houses in it, because we don't have that kind of capacity. But,
That was a mistake that was made several years ago.
okay,
There was a master plan that looked at unlimited capacity.
yeah, it's fine, yeah.
And the lesson learned.
but, you know, nobody here is the developer of this project, right? We're just, to the extent possible, trying to pave the way, grease the skids, make it easier for somebody to actually implement some of it. And, you know, if it ends up being 50 houses or 40 houses because 30 are going to be used elsewhere, that'd be fine. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Exactly.
Do we shoot for the moon and we get what we get?
Hmm?
Do we shoot high and we get what we get?
Mhm.
Does this reconfigure, it looks like, we talked about this at one point early, the intersection by the Chase Place and Shaw's, that kind of big open area? It looks like it actually fixes that.
It straightens it out a little bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
good,
that was part of our early discussions, and that was something we had,
yeah.
were hoped, and that would improve walkability.
I mean, it's clear, this project's really big. I mean, it's one area, but it covers a lot of different areas, different topics like road alignment and housing and vibrancy and activating a space, being more pedestrian oriented, and this balance of and very much the balance of the activity that's been desired in Irisville and the wetland capacity and the important functions that those wetlands play. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, this should, and the goal is to really focus on creating more predictability, more understanding, and more coordination, so that this development, what's been heard from the Wetlands Office is that something of this sort is needed before more development can happen. But second, I think it can provide a pretty good playbook for the community, and I've been really proud of the community engagement and the work of the community speaking and sharing what their thoughts are, which, yeah.
Not all community engagement is created equal, and I've been really impressed with the ways that the SE group has really managed to actively get input from folks.
Yeah, I agree, I think that was really a highlight of the process, is the SE group does a good job with
Yeah.
outreach,
Yeah.
facilitating community engagement.
Yep.
Anything else? So we're gonna wait to get a response and then have a more detailed.
That'll shape our final deliverables, and then we'll work towards having a presentation in front of the select board.
Well, I'm wondering if we wanna have an opportunity to talk about some of the policy choices before deliverables.
Okay, yeah, I think that might be
Happy
a good
to do
idea,
that.
it'd be a great idea, yeah,
Yeah.
That'd be good.
okay, great.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the work on this.
Thanks so much.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thanks for preparing that presentation.
Okay.
Bill, you wanna join us?
Yeah, when is that?
Thanks.
After CRB.
Thanks, Max.
Okay. Yep.
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
All right. Well, howdy, everyone. Thanks for the time tonight. Appreciate it. So Phil Huffman with the Waitsfield Conservation Commission here tonight in that role, but also as the co-chair of the now 3+ year effort of the Conservation Recreation Visioning Project that's been going on valley-wide. Appreciate a little bit of room on the agenda to fill you in on the work that we've been doing, this big community collaborative over the last 3 years. And this is the next stop in an ongoing sort of what we're calling a roadshow of going out to the key entities in the valley, both that have been represented and directly a part of the recreation and visioning process over the last 3 years, but others who've been sort of adjacent to it, but not directly in the loop. So I've been Waitsfield's representative to this big, broad steering committee, and as I mentioned, serving as co-chair. So alongside Laura Arneson from the Mad River Valley Recreation District, who was going to be here, but she's covering a lot of the other dog and pony shows with other entities, so we're giving her the night off tonight. So you get me solo instead. I've got a few slides to show you that'll just help to, as sort of a backdrop for what I'm going to be saying. And I'd love for this to be like as much of a conversation and not just a straight presentation. So if you have questions or comments as I'm going, feel free to jump in. Also, I'll just say at the outset, I realized when it was too late after the board materials had already gone out that it might have been helpful to include a couple of documents that I'll refer to later in your materials. Apologies for that oversight. There will be a URL that'll have a link to them. We can get them to you after the fact.
And I'll
So-
be happy to post them on the website.
That would be great.
Seems appropriate?
If, that'd be terrific. This is really a report out for you all as part of the broader Valley-wide community about what's happened over the past 3+ years, the products and outcomes that we've accomplished, and excuse me, what our next steps are. So this is an ongoing thing. It's always been envisioned as something that would continue into the future. We're transitioning into that next phase of it all right now, so we felt like this was a really appropriate time to be engaging with you all among others around the valley. So next slide, please. A lot of words, too many words for a slide. You can read it as I'm going, but the idea of this whole effort was to try to help to move things forward through a valley-wide dialogue among key interests and also the community at large on the interplay and hopefully a balance between outdoor recreation, which we all value, I think, and know is so critical to the present, past, present, and future of this community and the valley as a whole. So outdoor recreation on the one hand, four-season diverse opportunities for all sorts of folks, all types of activities. That on the one hand, and ecological integrity. So recognizing that we have a precious natural environment here that is priceless and that we need to not take for granted, and that it's subject to lots of different pressures. Outdoor recreation can be one of those pressures depending upon how it's done, how and where it's done. There are obviously lots of other things that are in some respects larger, but felt it was important to have a sort of focused dialogue around this interplay and trying to foster a spirit of collaborative dialogue and sort of shared direction for where we're going with this effort as a valley-wide community. So all a work in progress, but I think we've made some good progress over the course of the last couple of years. We did engage a consultant, actually same one you were talking about a few minutes ago, Arrowwood Environmental. We brought them in for help on a couple of different parts of the project that I'll say a little bit more about. There, as I'm sure you know, among the very best that we have the benefit of here in Vermont. They know this valley well from a lot of different projects. They provided great value to us, to the community really through their work on this project. And we developed some data layers and maps and documents that articulate some of this sort of shared direction going forward. I'll speak more about that in a minute. Next slide, please. So how did it begin? This slide doesn't really, I realized, again, too late to make a change, but it doesn't really tell the whole story. This whole effort got going really about 4 years ago, probably, when the conservation commissions and the Friends of the Mad River started a dialogue about this, sort of the dynamic and the interplay between outdoor recreation and conservation and environmental integrity. There were a couple of situations that had occurred in previous years where there wasn't as much dialogue and sort of advance notice about a couple of recreation projects that caught some folks on the conservation environmental side of things a little bit off guard, and made it all worked out fine in the long run, but it just made it a little jerkier, a little more tension than there probably needed to be. And so a bunch of us started talking about, like, hey, maybe if we just can reach out to our recreation colleagues, and we're all both environmentalists and recreationists, I think, at least many of us in the circle on this. But we thought, like, maybe if we just have some more intentional outreach and interaction and relationship building, we can move to a more proactive, collectively beneficial approach around the both existing recreation trails and other sites and opportunities, and also future ones. So that was sort of the genesis of it. Then the effort got going to pull together a bunch of different pieces into the big VOREC grant, the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, what a mouthful, grant that I'm sure you know plenty about, that the Valley got the biggest one in the state back in 2022 that included all the elements down at with the Welcome Center and Millbrook Bridge, all that sort of stuff. There was shared agreement to fold in a fifth piece to that package, which was the conservation recreation visioning around this idea of balancing the two, these two things. And I think that was an important factor in the state's decision-making about giving the Valley this big grant overall, was that it wasn't all about just recreation for recreation's sake, but it was about recreation in the context of the local environment and with a lot of thoughtfulness, foresight towards that. So, next slide, please. Just a glimpse, in addition to VOREC, we were really fortunate to get support from a number of other funders, both here in the Valley and on a statewide basis. I won't take the time to walk through all of those, but together it amounted to about $100,000, I think, was our sort of ending budget, maybe 90, something like that. About 60 of that, give or take, was from the VOREC grant, and then the balance came from the other sources that are up there. So, it all wouldn't have happened were it not for the support from those different entities. We formed at the outset next slide, representative steering committee, so 15 of us representing the major, maybe not all, but I think most, if not quite all, of the major both organizations that are involved in conservation and environmental issues on the one hand, and recreation related things on the other, and then some valley-wide integrative entities like the Recreation District and the Planning District. And I'm probably forgetting one or two, but you can see the list up there. Really terrific group of people, and everyone, I think, pretty much to a person leaned into this process. It was a little grueling at times with lots of meetings and not as much time out enjoying our environment or the recreation that we all love so much. It was a lot of talk about that, but I think everybody feels like it was time well spent. And on the point about relationship building, which I touched on earlier, I think we made some really important progress among this circle of people, at least, who are among the leaders of these different entities towards that direction. And I think that will carry forward and bodes well for where we're going with all this. Next slide. So in terms of what we did, so through, as I hope you all were at least aware of and maybe had a chance to lean into a little bit at points along the way, we had community engagement process. So the steering committee was sort of the focal point of the discussions, and we had two working groups, one on ecological integrity, one on outdoor recreation, to do sort of deep dives on both of those. Then the steering committee is where it all came together. But we also had a lot of community engagement. We did 4 different public forums at the LaRue Farm Pavilion and at the Valley Players. We had a couple of educational sessions that were more of sort of presentations and information dissemination. We put out a survey. We had a bunch of different things. Anyway, with that and the steering committee's work and the help of Arrowwood and a project manager who we had on for a good chunk of the project, we developed 3 primary products. There are others, but these are the ones that I'll just highlight. And so they're all on the Recreation District website, and encourage you to go take a look at them there. Again, apologies for not getting them into the board packet up front. But one that Arrowwood was crucial for was the gathering of data layers on sort of everything that we know, we know about ecological assets and attributes. They identified sort of 12 major categories of those related to different aspects of habitat and species and things like that. But so ecological features and also existing outdoor recreation amenities, so trails, trailheads, parking areas, things like that. They pulled all of those data layers together and put them into an online mapping tool. And the idea of that is that it's now publicly available. Anyone can use it. It's pretty straightforward. It takes a little playing around with if you're not familiar with GIS or whatever, but just to turn on and off different layers. And you can see what the layout of these things is all across the valley. And the idea of it was to help identify areas where there may be recreation features, a trail, for instance, that are in or near a sensitive ecological feature, or currently, or also more looking forward, for anyone who's thinking about establishing a new recreation site, a new trail or something like that, they could go to the map, click on the geography, the part of the valley that they're looking at, see what ecological features are known to be there, and then hopefully that can inform some thoughtful siting about where the new trail or something like that might go. So there's a lot more I could say about that tool. I won't in the interest of time, but you get the idea. Second one, the shared vision, values, and guiding principles statement is a 4.5-page document that is loaded with substance. I won't take, it really warrants reading through. I really encourage you to do that. We spend a lot of time and sort of excruciating, editing by committee, which is always dangerous, but but ultimately I think was pretty successful in this case, really trying to articulate this combination of a shared vision of like, what do we all see around this interplay of ecological integrity and outdoor recreation, and valuing them both very highly. So what's our shared vision for it going forward? How important both of them are for the valley-wide community? What are some of the values that underpin that? And a couple of examples are, the basic headers with a lot of description underneath. We value nature. We value human recreation in nature, and we value collaboration, ongoing collaboration around figuring out these sorts of things. And then guiding principles for how, sort of, to help guide further dialogue and attention to all of these things in the community going forward. So the guiding principles related to collaboration, trust, science, and public engagement, diversity, equity, access, and inclusion in the outdoors, things like that. So lots of substance, as I say. We sort of think about this as like we couldn't come up with quite the right word, but it's almost like our constitution, that is non-binding. There's no authority with any of this. It's all, participation of the willing, both among the steering committee and all of the different interests that it represents, but really the community at large and landowners. No one's dictating anything to anyone. There's no regulatory authority or anything, but it's really just trying to lay out a vision and a path forward on all of this, that hopefully everyone who is signed on to this, and all the members of the steering committee did on behalf of the organizations they represented, but also that it could help to sort of infiltrate the thinking of the community at large around these issues. So I encourage you to take a look at that. The third product, among others, but that I'll highlight for now, is we also developed a process guide for recreational trail development. So it's really kind of a step-by-step menu or guide. Again, there's no requirement for anyone to actually adhere to this, but it's something that we're offering to trail groups and to landowners who are thinking about establishing new trails, just to take advantage of the tools that are available and the thinking that's behind it and the spirit that's behind it, I think. And from this project, but from other things too, and to engage in hopefully proactive, constructive, collaborative dialogue as things move forward on the establishment of siting, development, construction, maintenance of trails in the future. Coming towards the end, if you can go to the next slide. So that's sort of snapshot of CRV 1.0 over the course of the last 3 years. We're now transitioning into CRV 2.0. It is going to continue. As I said earlier, that's been the intent all along. We're shifting our approach a little bit. The range of interests from the steering committee are going to continue. There's a few people who are shifting in and out. We're moving to a quarterly meeting structure. Those are going to be public meetings. The first one's coming up on September 23rd. I think it says in one of the next slides. We'll get there in a sec. And then we've got some ongoing work priorities. Next slide, please, York. So the thought behind all of this is that we don't want the work that's been done so far to just like stop and say, well, that was great, and then everybody goes back to doing what they used to do and not talking to each other enough, and the community at large isn't thinking about it. So the hope is to continue to try to push all of this forward in a really positive, constructive way. So again, these quarterly meetings, and then we've got a list of like 20 shared work priorities, I would say. And the next slide has a few of them that we see are particularly high priority, but it's not, you can go down to the next one, yeah. It's not to the exclusion of other priorities, but these are a few that are right up there. So we're working on a code of ethics for recreation users, both those of us who are lucky enough to live here and people who come from outside the valley to recreate. Other places like Kingdom Trails up in the Northeast Kingdom have done similar sorts of things, so we're trying to learn from other efforts where we can. Really critical part of all of this, the second one, is about outreach to private landowners. So recognizing that, as I say, there's no regulatory authority or anything like that with this, but we feel like we have a lot of good information, and also there's sort of a mindset or a spirit that goes along with this that we hope to help to share with landowners who are out there who may be thinking about developing trails on their land or already have them and may be open to some ideas about adjustments to those or how they can do those in the most sort of ecologically sensitive way. Third one, science and knowledge really to inform this effort has been an underpinning of it from the start. So we want to continue to try to inform ourselves as a steering committee, but as a community as a whole, about what we have here for ecological attributes. We know a lot, but we'll never know everything. There's always more to learn. Trying to gather science-based information on this interplay between recreation and ecological impacts. And that what are sort of the best practices? What are the things to watch out for? Those sorts of things. And to feed those into future trail maintenance and development. And then the last one is the really thorny topic, to be candid, about the effect of dogs on trails and how they affect the environment, and particularly their impact on wildlife, as well as other users and things like that. So, and that's,
Can of worms.
I know from
Yeah.
your nodding heads, I probably don't need to say anything more, but, and I'm not sure exactly how we're gonna move forward on that one, knowing that it's, the context is different town by town in terms of the existing rules and regulations and the dynamic and all that, so
Naming it is a good first step.
that's what,
I also just want to be mindful of the time.
yeah, no, we're just about done. So, I think that's it. Well, last slide. Oh, yeah, in terms of, so getting involved, that meeting is on the 23rd. Is that the same day that the water infrastructure?
I think
That's
that's
the
on
next day.
It is, okay, good. So, and this meeting is I think from 4 to 6, I ought to know, I think we're gonna have it at the Welcome Center. Really important to acknowledge the leadership and support of the Recreation District over the course of this project so far. They've been the home fiscal agent and administrative support for it. Laura and the district board have been crucial in all of this. It's now shifting, and big thanks to the planning district who are taking it on in a sort of administrative sense. And Sam Robinson is going to be the coordinator for this effort going forward. So reach out to Sam or to me or to Laura, or if you have thoughts, questions, anything like that. Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks so much.
Any questions? That's good to hear that Sam and the planning district are gonna remain involved. That's, I think, really important.
Yep,
And he has the bandwidth to take that on?
he does. He and Joshua and the board thought about it, and it was a very conscious decision and not by force.
I trust you. Trust but verify. I appreciate it.
Exactly. So, we haven't really been organized on this, but as we're doing this outreach, we're thinking it would be ideal to get endorsements, even sort of low-key endorsements of the gist of what we've been doing from all the different entities that we're reaching out to. I don't have a, proposed wording for that or anything like it, but if it's something that you might be open to, maybe after taking a look at some of those documents or whatever, we could fold that into a follow-on. So
Yeah, I would hope we'd consider it, yeah, absolutely.
that would be great. I think it would just be a sort of a vote of confidence, I think, is really what it amounts to. I don't think it would, bind you to anything other than like, this is important and we believe in what's been done, where it's going.
Yeah, I was aware when we received the grant that the valley was looked at as a potential model, because this is playing out not necessarily in a always a positive way across the state, the tension between recreation development, recreation infrastructure and environmental impacts. And I know that the state was eager for this to be a proving ground of working together. It seems like you've achieved that.
I think we have, and there's always more that we might do, might want to do, hope to do, but I feel like, I think everybody's feeling pretty good about where we got to. And I think from what I'm aware of, the feedback from the state's been very positive so far. So,
But it's good to see sort of things that can be considered in opposition with one another being sort of redirected in a forward-moving direction. It's great.
that's the idea.
The only sad part for you guys is if none of you went to when they presented this at LaRue, you missed Misha and the group's skit, which was pretty epic, to show how the process goes from beginning to end.
Oh, goodness.
And you really missed out. I wish it was recorded.
Wow.
That's right.
It was recorded.
No, I don't think
Wasn't it?
I'm sure someone did.
Oh, actually, I think
I
John
think
was
it's-
there.
I was there.
Oh, there we go.
I haven't looked for it, but I think, yeah,
MRBTV.
that would be a good one to
For
have
the
just
win.
for the Valley Archives, I think, in general. Anyway,
Thanks so much.
thanks very much.
Can you stay around?
Do you want me to stay for
Can
next
I
one?
ask a question? He wants this back. How do I eject on a PC? Does anybody know? Or will I heard it if I just pull it up?
I think,
You probably should reject
Lower
it.
right, request to reject, otherwise you might damage the lower right.
In like the file
I
folder,
didn't
you
wanna
should
take
be able
time- I didn't
to
wanna take
eject
time,
it.
but I'm like, I don't wanna mess anything up.
no,
Alright,
it
why don't we
it
move
would
forward?
probably
We're
be
kinda like talking
okay
about
if you just
fire.
pull it, but,
Okay.
and I probably have backups of everything that's on there anyway, so.
So, what we provided was a draft site plan for improvements to the Farley Park. If you remember, when Virginia Farley passed away, she was a longtime employee of the Vermont Land Trust. She was actually the second person hired for the Ottauquechee Land Trust, lived in Boortown, and was involved in pretty much every conservation project in the Mad River Valley, which numbers several thousand acres. And a group of her friends and family approached the town about doing private fundraising and doing some development to have a quiet commemorative park named in her honor, but also kind of celebrating what she stood for, which was stewardship and conservation. And they raised over $50,000. We have been working with some of the friends and family have been working with Cynthia Knopf, a landscape architect, to come up with a pretty simple site design for the property. And we've gone through some kind of fits and starts on it for a couple of reasons. One, the property is encumbered by floodplain and by conservation easements, so where things like parking, there's a setback from the river that exceeds the town zoning setback for parking and things like that. The property is currently partly farmed by Hadley Gaylord, who hays it, which I don't know if that, we have talked about that in the past. Hadley farms a couple of town properties that we'd like to formalize, but I think the Conservation Commission has concluded, and I would agree with them, that it's a good thing, because if he's not haying the property, we're likely gonna be overrun with invasives, so we'd like to make that a part of it. One of the initial plans for this was a pretty extensive landscaping, and I think we backed off of that, one, because the agricultural heritage of the property and of Virginia is important to recognize. So we wanted to maintain more of the property available for agriculture. And we wanted to make sure, we wanted to make some improvements for parking, but not like the LaRue swim hole. We don't envision this being a overrun popular place. It doesn't have the type of swim hole, it's more of a waiting spot. We don't expect it to get as heavy use as Blue Ledges or LaRue swim hole. Want to actually discourage that. So we went through some different alternatives for parking and came up with a plan to put 6 to 8 cars nestled into an existing berm right off of Route 100 that meets the 100-foot setback from the river. There's not a lot of area that does. We actually considered another area that would have taken up more of the hayfield and probably potentially impact a wetland. And then the idea is some mowed paths, some plantings, a pollinator garden, some interpretive information, and kind of one of the most important features is a stone bench. Virginia spent her childhood spending summers in Ireland with family, and there was a particular stone bench that was always very critical to her. So we actually, and we used the money, the select board approved a contract to have that designed and potentially, ultimately installed. The folks who we picked on that contract actually went to Ireland to go to that bench to take a look at it. They're friends of the family. So this is a site plan that we're hoping to move forward on. Phil, do you have any?
Not really. I think you summarized it really well, Brian.
One question mark was what permitting requirements are. JB looked into that, and I haven't heard from him.
Got an
yet.
answer. I got an answer at 9 o'clock this morning. So there's no concern with the parking. There's no real concern with the stone bench. Thank you for that updated site plan that had more detail, which you gave me last week. It took Ned's office a while to get back to me. But it appears at the most, the stone bench proposal, it is obviously not considered a structure, but it is considered development within the, certainly the fluvial erosion hazard overlay, and very much, and potentially the flood hazard overlay. One thing that she is requesting, Brian, if we could get a similar map with 1 foot contours, then we could more accurately depict whether it's in the FHO or just the FEHO. In any case, even if it's in both, would go through administrative review, which means I could permit it, subject to the state getting a final drawing with 1 foot contours, so they know once they give their okay, then it would just be a zoning permit through the town. It does not need to go to the DRB. So the 1 foot contours will just officially show the location, whether it's included in the FHO or just the fluvial erosion. So it's administrative review. It's an accessory structure to a permitted use. The people at the flood at Ned's office basically are calling it accessory use to a trail. That works for me. I don't know what trail's in there. It doesn't really.
That seems right as well.
There's nothing really that would fall else into. So let's go with that. So it seems like it's a go. So I just would like to get an updated site plan with 1 foot contours and then.
Well, and one change that also came up is you see the little zig and zag of the 100 setback. The sign needs to be moved back out of that.
Okay. All right.
Are there any questions? I'm gonna ask if you're comfortable, if you guys could endorse moving forward with this.
Yeah, what's the timing of, when are you trying to build
Well,
that?
there's some issues about the curb cut. V-Trans wants a large curb cut with a lot of asphalt. Still gonna be looking into that.
And collaboration with Hadley in
Yes.
terms of ensuring his access as well,
Well, that's,
if I understand it correctly.
I think if there's a permanent deeded access, he needs to be a co-applicant. There's not, and we can just continue to provide him with permission.
I see.
Hadley accesses his vegetable field, his some of his fields through this property, and he hays the property. He has other access, but this is more convenient to him. Initially, we had cars up against his property boundary, and he was concerned that could create some problems for him. I think he was right, so we're trying to accommodate that.
I think, and the expectation is a soft opening end of
Well,
October.
Yeah,
we're
that was gonna be
looking
my
into
next
that. The idea is we would like to get the bench installed and have a soft opening in October for friends and family, not recognizing that most of the implementation isn't gonna happen until next year.
Yeah, I think only 2 things I'd add quickly are that, over the last couple of years, as this has been unfolding, it's been what I think it will continue to be going forward of, a collaboration on the town's part between the Conservation Commission and the Select Board, and really appreciate the ways in which you all are leaning into it now, and that's been the case over the last couple of years. And the Consecom is up to speed on everything that you're hearing and seeing and been a part of the dialogue and on board with moving forward with it all. So there's that, and also I just add that for those of you who are the newest to the board, I guess we developed a management plan for the property, what was the Tardy property since 2003 until a year or two ago, and that envisions and sort of authorizes this transition from the Tardy property to the Farley Riverside Park that was developed by the Conservation Commission, approved by the Select Board. So this is all in sync with, kind of the way that this has been marching forward over the last couple of years.
And I'll just briefly add, the Conservation Commission actually had looked at an early plan and made some pretty significant changes that improved it, and including kind of scaling back some of the landscaping and keeping an agricultural element.
And as you probably know, that property, significant parts of it are a big part of the Conservation Commission's collaborative effort on invasives control.
Yeah, so I think this
So-
is where I went and did some of that knotweed mitigation. So yes,
Thank
lots of hard work.
Yeah.
It was kind of ironic in talking to JB about permitting. We're doing a site plan, a landscaping plan, but the Conservation Commission has been planting hundreds of trees and materials on this property for the last summer as they remove knotweed and try to get native species kind of reestablished.
Yeah, and that's gonna be an ongoing battle, not just knotweed, but a bunch of woody invasives as well, and, that's,
I mean, it's already one of my favorite parks in town. I mean, I literally love going there. It's really lovely.
it's great to hear you say
Like the
that.
butterflies, the birds, it's a great spot.
So are you looking for a motion to
Yeah, I was gonna-
approve?
Is it the site plan and the permit?
Yes.
Are those
We
the
need
two
to-
things?
I'd ask permission to approve the site plan and apply for a zoning permit, and I would also ask that we waive the permit fee, which we can do.
Makes sense, right?
It's a town problem.
Yeah.
Town paying the town.
Town paying the town,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Are you making that motion?
I'm trying to remember what you said. I can't.
As stated.
As I would make the motion as stated
Well,
by Mr. Brian Shoup.
Second?
second, go ahead.
It doesn't matter.
You
Any
got it.
question, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. So, I'd say we are late on this because volunteers doing things sometimes isn't as
That's
efficient as.
that's what volunteers cost. is patience.
As we might hope.
Yeah.
But it's
about
happening.
ourselves.
What is happening, yeah. Great.
And I
Thank
would
you.
say,
Yeah.
keep October 26th, is that the
7 or
Sun-
6, yeah, well,
the last Sunday in October, on your calendar, if you'd like to come join
Great.
opening celebration, if all the pieces fall into place from here, which is still a significant if.
great.
Yeah,
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you all.
Great,
Thank
thank
for
you.
your presentation.
Thanks for
Yeah,
sticking around, JD.
Appreciate all your work on these and other things.
So the next item is a continuation from our last meeting of a request from the Waitsfield Historical Society to waive the rent for the one office that they have signed a lease for to pay rent in January of this year. So just a little bit of background, I'll try to be brief, and Josh, mainly mostly for your benefit. We, how far back do I go? So
Isn't that always the question?
When we purchased the property, the Historical Society raised a substantial amount of money, over $50,000, to contribute to the purchase and renovation. And at that time, a commitment was made to let them use the parlor, the front building, the front room, rent-free. And they have, that is included in their current lease as a rent-free use of the building. They also had another room. First, it was an upstairs office that was now occupied by Beth Kendricks, right?
I believe so.
And then when the chamber moved out, they occupied 2 offices. They occupied the smaller of those offices. And that was allowed to be rent-free, although there's no documentation
Of any of this.
about that. And then at some point, they occupied the other chamber building, the larger office that the chamber had, the one that kind of has those closeout to be used as an information counter. And there's no documentation about that decision either. When the White House Commission was formed, they were tasked with coming up with a rental structure and updated leases, because the leases hadn't been updated in a long time. And their recommendation was to charge for the one room, but to continue to provide the other two rooms rent-free. All of the rents in the building were increased for the first time in at least a decade, if not more. And leases were signed, and you know, we all went through that. And then they have been paying rent on the property since January. We'd like to be relieved of that.
So they have been paying it since January?
Yes, my knowledge they have, yes, yeah. So we heard from all of them. They, you know, made important points about the value of the Historical Society and their work to the community. I think other points that were raised is that historic preservation is one of the goals for the building, but also community service. And other community service organizations are renting the property and paying rent. And the planning district is there, so it's up, you know, we need to decide what to do. So I know Larissa and I have talked about it. We talked after the meeting. I'm not sure, I guess, that's the background. I wanna turn it over to you guys before it's going any further.
So for context, the upstairs office that the Historical Society used to occupy was 323 square feet. And they're,
What is the smaller one that they're in now? And I
so
don't
the
know that.
smaller one is 150 square feet, the larger is 250 square feet.
And what's the amount of the rent roughly that they're paying on the one space?
$310, which it sounds like, based on current, the current financial situation is pretty taxing on the Historical Society. I have a lot of sympathy for how difficult it is to be a nonprofit organization and how challenging fundraising can be. I mean, I worked for an arts organization that, I mean, arts are not particularly well funded. Dance is the least well funded of the arts, so I hear and understand. But we also have to like function in the reality of the world where things cost things. So that's one objection that I have. The other is that I think that this is one of those cases where sort of historic preservation ideas and community ideas are butting up against each other, and I would love for it to not be adversarial. I would love for it to be collaborative and move in a forward direction. And I feel like if we continue to treat the Historical Society as if they are entitled to many things that none of the other community-oriented organizations and people are there, we're just setting up an adversarial atmosphere in the building. Those are my primary concerns.
Yeah, I tend to agree with those thoughts, and I also want to give some deference and weight to the process that the General White House Commission just went through, and you know, the negotiation and signing of these leases, and you know, the commission is charged with the management of the building, and so that's where I'm at right now. I think I agree. I don't want it to be a binary that historical preservation or these other organizations are more important or less important. And I hope we can support all the organizations that need help in the ways that they need it going forward. Whether it's, you know, increased publicity, volunteer help, and fundraising. You know.
I was really excited to see so many new faces,
Yeah,
Historical Society, and
100% agree.
intergenerational faces, and I feel like there's some new minds and probably great ideas that could be leveraged into future fundraising efforts and best practices, but Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It feels to me like we are providing significant support for the Historical Society with the free run on the existing space, you know, from way back when, and the significant funds the town's put into the maintenance of the building. And that, arguably, that's been a long time coming, but there's been a significant increase in the funds the town's committed to the maintenance of the overall building, which I think also benefits the Historic Society. So it feels like this is already kind of a middle ground compromise that's providing some benefit, but not like fully free for as much space as you want type offer. So I'm very much in support of sticking with the plan. Like presumably the Historic Society signed a lease back in the fall and started paying rent in January. So it feels like there's already been some agreement in motion down this path, and now a request to reverse that. I understand fundraising is challenging, but it's like $3,700 in total, if I'm getting the math right, for a year, something like that.
That's
I
about-
believe,
Yes, that's about right.
That's not an exorbitant amount of money, and consistent with the rent others are paying. I feel we ought to stick to it.
Fred?
I will tell you that if we can't give the Historical Society some relief, it's going to devolve to what it was prior, which I don't think we want. I think the Historical Society gives a significant contribution to the town in that we preserve the town's heritage, artifacts, and history. I often think of the Historical Society as a committee, though not really, of the town, because we try to work so close with the town. The board of directors are pretty adamant that unless we can find a mechanism around this, that they'll probably fold up and move out, or worse, which I don't think any of us want. I would like to suggest that we, last town meeting, the town approved $1,000 special appropriation for the Historical Society. They never had one before. I would like to suggest increasing the special appropriation, which would allow the Historical Society to pay its rent, so you still get the income, and it allows the Historical Society to stay there.
So increasing the appropriation by how much?
2,000
Okay.
to bring it to 3,000.
So you mean at town meeting?
Excuse
Is
me?
that for a town meeting discussion?
The Historical Society, according to our ordinance on special appropriations, went before the voters last March and was approved $1,000 a year special appropriation. According to our ordinance, that does not, they do not have to go before the voters again. It automatically gets on the list with all the other special appropriations.
But it doesn't go into effect until the next fiscal year.
Okay?
You know, there's two comments about that. One, I went back and read the minutes from the town meeting, when we, a special town meeting when we bought the building, which I was at. And there was a presentation made about how rents would support the operational costs of the building. And I think the big mistake was, yeah, but what about the roof that we're gonna have to put on in 30 years, which we haven't fixed? That wasn't covered, but there was a commitment that it be provided. And there's also a commitment to help the Historical Society. And one thing that would accomplish, Fred, would be, we have different sets of books. We've got the Water Commission business account, we've got the White House business account, we've got the town budget. And my concern is, you know, it might be a drop in the bucket off the town budget, but it's a hole in the White House budget, the lost rent. So what you're suggesting would satisfy that by keeping the White House budget whole,
Yes,
While-
yes.
Maybe
Maybe I didn't explain myself.
No, you
well.
did, you explained it, I'm just thinking of it through and how
Okay.
we manage our
So
funds.
the town would still be getting the rents that it needs to support the White House. And the society would be able to continue.
I guess the question is that and this will be so ultimately, that would involve continuing under the current rent agreement with the understanding that at town meeting, the voters would decide whether or not to increase the rent, the appropriation to cover the rent.
No, that isn't the way we've been doing it with the
No,
other
no, no,
special.
but the voters approve the budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know you're
It would
saying
be
it's not
request-
require a petition in a separate article, but there would still be an opportunity for somebody to stand up
Oh,
and say,
yeah.
you guys want to reduce the budget by $2,000 so we don't give the historical society any more money.
Yes, yep, that's always true at town
Yeah.
meeting day. Yep, absolutely.
What do folks think?
Is there, question before that, was there a discussion last week about fundraising efforts, or 2 weeks ago about fundraising efforts to date that might cover the rent?
There was an assertion that the commission, the General White House Commission and the Historical Society are in competition for fundraising, which I would like to push back against a little bit, because it is my hope that the sort of historic preservation of artifacts and the educational efforts, that would be mostly within the scope of the Historical Society's fundraising. And if there are specific projects and joint ventures that the commission and the Historical Society do together, then by definition, they wouldn't be in competition with each other, they'd be working together. So, but in terms of
Yeah.
specific fundraising efforts, I don't recall there having been any proposals, but I might have missed that in the kerfuffle.
Yeah,
And-
I have the same question.
And would also offer that the Historical Society does do a lot of stuff in kind and has made contributions over the years.
They're not the only ones that have, though. Other occupants have done, and if we're going to and it's significant, if we're going to recognize
But we
in-kind
do.
contributions, then I feel like we need to account for that in a deliberate way. I don't know, that's just.
I can supply that if you wish.
Okay.
What is, again, going backwards perhaps, what's that space used for, the
So
rent, the
room,
rented space that we're talking about?
so that's the one that's the actual office, correct?
Right.
So room 101, which is 150 square feet, is currently used for archival purposes.
Yeah, and the thought process is we're gonna have that office set up as a museum of our more sensitive artifacts, like the general sword and the drum and so forth. And have the parlor open every day 8 to 4 with a digital museum. We've got a lot of really nice videos on historical significance of different things here in Waitsfield. And I've already got a monitor, and I'm loading up a lot of stuff from MRV TV, thank you very much, and some stuff that we have. So people can go in, sit down, and view these videos at will. I'll be open all the time. So, yeah, the inner sanctum, as I call it, would be for the more sensitive artifacts that we don't want.
Just out and.
Yeah. That would be available on certain times or by appointment. And the parlor would be, if something did get damaged, because we can't have a person there full-time. Just can't. But we can open it up and have it available full-time and have non-historic sensitive items there. You know, someone knocked off the TV or the monitor, well, that's replaceable. The general sword is not replaceable. So that's our thought process. To have a nice, comfortable place where people can come in, relax, see some videos of the history of Waitsfield, and so.
So that would be the intended future use of the rented space, you know?
The rented space would be where the sensitive artifacts would be stored and would be locked.
Stored and viewed, or just, that would just be like the archival space, or?
Both.
Available by appointment or
Got it.
special days.
Yeah, certain days, yeah, something like that.
And actually, the parlor is almost always open. I work in there sometimes because it's actually quite
It,
nice.
it
Yes.
wasn't for a long time. It was
Yeah,
almost
That's been a
always
vast
locked.
The
improvement.
renters
And-
seem to, if the renters are during the day, they usually open the door, which I think the Historical Society appreciates.
Yeah, previous to the new Historical Society, it was locked all the time. But I can't see any reason, I would love people to come in and view what we have and leave that door open.
And I do feel part of supporting that kind of community feeling is having it be accessible to
Yeah.
the community, you
And
know?
I think, depending on if it's technically possible, to have an open Wi-Fi system there in the parlor. So people can come in and use a Wi-Fi system, can view our videos, and we'll have some interesting items thereabouts. So it's a museum, open to the public.
One small accounting matter, this is gonna seem like it's out of left field, but, the Whitney Tree Service bill that was paid for by the Historical Society, I think technically it shouldn't come out of their bank. I think that the commission should be reimbursing them for that theoretically. 2,450 if that was for site work. I don't think that should be coming out of the Historical Society's
Well, it's one of
coffers.
those in-kind things that we were doing to help further the General Wade House.
Sure, I'm just saying that if
As
there
we-
are
as we-
concerns about rent right now, if the accounting was put to rights, that would give them 8 months of rent, which would tide them over to town meeting.
Do you mind if I just add one little bit? Like Steve and I are really talking about ensuring that the General Wade House budgeting is more transparent. And right now with the system, we're trying to make it transparent, but because the way it's budgeted and everything is, and I think we're working on making it 100% transparent moving forward for next fiscal year. And I think this is a good idea in terms of just being in alignment of saying the commission is doing all it can to make sure that the property is upkept. You know, it's in alignment with what the commission's really trying to do, and it does alleviate the historical side. It seems like, I think, from my perspective, and for our office downstairs, it's a pretty good idea. It's not up to me, but
It was just
I
a
like-
thought
I
for a
like
sort
the
of
idea.
short-term stopgap.
Well,
if nothing else.
the lease is up in December, as is all the leases over there. So they're all gonna have to be re-signed. But that's another discussion for another day. We've already paid September, October, we can do 3 months.
Well, I think what Marissa's suggesting is if we have funds for capital improvements to the property, if we reimburse for the tree,
Okay.
that would provide additional time, because
Okay,
I think there'll need to be a short-term lease extension if this all happens the way you outlined it until July 1, because that's when the budget will take effect.
so the society would get a rebate for the trees, is that what I
A
understand?
reimbursement, I
Reimbursement.
think.
Okay, that's cool.
I feel like
That's cool.
especially if we're
I think
trying
that, I think that
to,
makes absolute total sense.
That's cool.
if we're trying to keep sort of the scope of each domain separate unless there's a specific joint venture, I feel like anything that's site maintenance should be under sort of the commission, but
Okay.
that's just my,
Well, in the past, there was a different system, and now we have the General Wade House Commission, and we have a revitalized, I pray, Historical Society.
it certainly looked like it.
Trying, it's
Yeah.
challenging.
Well, that didn't exist when we cut the tree down.
It was in that transition.
Yeah.
period.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years of change here.
Yeah. And Brian has said that, you know, any sort of big systemic change like this is gonna be a little bumpy, and so I feel like we're hitting bumps. I do wonder if, and this is probably not a for today question, but if the archival materials are safest in that building, because it's not particularly well, like humidity or temperature controlled or any of those things. So I'm wondering if room 101 is best suited to being an archival space,
Well,
or
it's
if
a
it would
lot
make
better
more
now
sense.
that we fixed the toilet upstairs that was leaking right over.
Oh,
it.
excellent!
Not to
So
mention
glad
the
to hear
roof.
that. No.
But we are looking at appointing a new archivist who's had quite a bit of training and experience, and we'll be looking to her for guidance on it.
I just-
I talked to Gib Geiger, who made a suggestion about looking into, as a future improvement, installing heat pumps, which would provide some climate control. Not perfect, but it would, you know, take the humidity out in the summer, and that could go a long way in
Okay.
helping with
I
keeping
just-
the archives.
I also acknowledge that if things on the first floor are entirely occupied by the Historical Society, and as a fully volunteer organization, they are not able to staff that, that means that there's nobody on the first floor unless the renters from upstairs are coming down and occupying the space, which may be something that is totally fine. I just want to acknowledge that that's how it feels when you come into the space, is that,
Something I thought I would do, well, planning on doing, is Tony, I don't remember his last name, formerly of MRV-TV. Italiano, is going to film me welcoming people to the museum,
oh, great.
okay? There'll be a QR code on the door or just inside, so people can bring it up on their telephone. Here's the Historical Society president welcoming you to the museum. Please come in and enjoy our videos, so forth and so on. I think we've really got to leverage technology like this in order to run such a small-scale museum with limited volunteers. They can take time to sit there all day and wait for the 1 or 2 people that show up every other day or something. If this really starts to work well for us, we really want to push and advertise a lot that the Waitsfield Historical Society's museum is open. It is a place for people to go on rainy days or bad ski days, or if you're just plain interested in history. We're open, and we're open for business. And we want to promote this going forward.
It'll be greeted by a Fred hologram.
There you go.
Are you gonna dress up again?
Or maybe
As
the
General Waite, I was
or
like,
maybe
is this
the
you as
general.
the president?
Maybe the general.
Maybe the general will be there. Yeah, the general's getting a new uniform.
I mean, the much more analog solution, which is maybe not a solution, would be to put the archival materials somewhere that is actually humidity and temperature controlled, and then having another member of the community renting the small space. It sounds like that is not of interest, but it is an option.
Yeah.
So, wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, but the great suggestion you had of reimbursement of the tree maintenance, that buys time to let that option play out or not. You can either
Much appreciated.
renew the lease, see what happens at town meeting, or if it doesn't go forward at town meeting or whatever, then maybe need to find a new home for the materials.
Yeah, and I do want to make sure that whatever ends up getting decided is codified somewhere, because I think half of the trouble that we've run into is that
yeah.
there is no paper trail. And I know even the things that there
Yeah.
are paper trails for, we don't know where the trail is or where it starts, but I just wanted to name that as well.
No, it was meant, and in the beginning, it was all good intentions, and things went well, but it needs to be updated and codified. Absolutely.
All right.
And this is what we're doing right now.
So do you want to turn that into a motion?
What is the motion?
The reimbursement.
I guess we
Oh,
would want
the-
to decline the request to waive the rent, agree to consider as our budgeting process increasing the town's allocation to the Historical Society to cover a greater portion of the rent and a reimbursement for the tree removal.
Okay, I will
Make that motion?
make that motion as stated. I was gonna say,
You're
I'm
getting
gonna,
really good at this.
I'm getting super good at this, yay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think that was a balanced approach to
That's really good.
dealing with
And
this.
I want you to know that I think the general will be pleased.
Good.
The general will be pleased.
If he was here.
Moving on, I think we can cut through some of the next items fairly quickly. At our last meeting, we had on the agenda, considering to ask to request that the planning commission look into options for addressing short-term rentals through town policies or regulations. There were 3 of us there, we did a straw vote, it didn't appear as though the vote was going to pass, so we tabled it. Thanks for not objecting to that, Fred, to this meeting. But again, at this point, we're considering asking the planning commission to look into what our options are and what other towns are doing and come up with some recommendations that we might consider at a future date.
I think also, as Dave stated at a previous meeting, it's important to know what not regulating would mean. Just sort of, I think, fact finding. It is also the first item on the town plan's short list of 8, what we want to do over the next 8 years as, you know, as accepted by the select board in October of '23. So I think that states specifically, complete a comprehensive study of short-term rentals and their potential impact on the community. The study should include recommendations for potential future actions that are supported by the findings. So I feel like it's
Well,
right
that's a
there in the town
recommendation,
plan.
it's not a,
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I don't
It
think
isn't-
anybody is looking for a specific regulation at this point. I think looking for information.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm looking for.
Yeah, I want information. I mean, we have been talking about the Irisville master plan with 70 additional housing units in the full build-out scenario. We've been talking about other projects with, you know, in the teens number of houses, and I just looked on Airbnb for November 11th through 14th, that's midweek. And this is from Blueberry Lake to Mount Ellen to Moortown, and I filtered by single homes only, so, or separate homes only, so not rooms in people's houses, which I think are fine, or I think they don't impact tenant availability.
Yeah.
And so there are 375 homes within that map area currently for rent. There's probably some that are already rented, you know, and so that's a big number compared to the scale of housing that we're looking to build with our additional wastewater improvement, and so that's why I think it's valid to talk about. You know.
So the suggested motion last time was to request that the planning commission, who are prepared to respond positively, to consider options for addressing short-term rental, identifying the potential impacts and possible options for addressing them.
Yeah, I think every other ski community, recreation-based community is looking at it and/or has already adopted some kind of regulation of some sort. So it would seem out of step, frankly, for us not to be looking at it. Doesn't mean we have a for me anyway, a pre-subscribed plan or what we're gonna do, but we gotta look at it, because I think it is like 375 housing units.
That's from Moortown to Blueberry Lake.
Sure,
and
understood.
Sugar Bush to
Understood.
350 houses
75 separate homes right now, currently,
that are rental properties?
that are
That are
currently for
Airbnb,
rent,
that are,
just on one platform.
Oh.
so
okay.
for short-term
Yeah.
rentals.
And that's just on Airbnb, that's not.
That's correct.
It's not
Verbo
I
or-
just
Verbo
was,
or
I
any
just
of the
was
other
getting a
ones.
sense of the scale.
No.
Right.
So, what's your pleasure?
I would ask them to look at it or make that motion to post the language. ask the planning commission to study short-term rentals and make some fact findings and recommendations.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Yeah. We are a tourist-based valley. We live or die with tourism. People who use services of short-term rentals are tourists that come here and spend money locally. We don't want to do anything that would stymie that or would cut that down in any way. We live by this. These people who are renting a portion of their home as short-term rentals are probably using that money to pay their property taxes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I hear that.
Without a doubt. I would ask, I don't know if I want to pose it as an amendment, but I would hope that all facets of short-term rentals be looked at, not just through the eyes of maybe it would create a few more local rentals. Because I really don't know, and I would like to know, if people are, landlords would revert to long-term rentals if we put in a regulation against or inhibit short-term rentals. I'd like to know that fact. How many would be created?
Yeah.
Or
And I
how
think that's
many
part of what we're-
short-term rentals would just go away altogether?
And I mean, there are a lot of ways that this hair has been split in many different places that very much take that into account. And I would certainly hope that that would be taken into account as well, is that this is a significant source of income for some people who live here and make it possible for them to afford to live here.
Exactly.
And I think that that's a critical variable to incorporate into this. I think we also have to take into consideration that as new housing is built, one of the fears that I hear repeated
And-
over and over and over again
Is happening.
is it's just gonna become short-term rental, and none of those wonderful people who wait tables and work on the ski mountain and like make it possible for tourism here to really be vibrant for them to live. So my hope is that it will be a balanced and nuanced.
That's what I would
Fact-finding,
hope also,
yeah.
that it wouldn't be just one-sided.
And
Because the landlords are not our enemies.
No, and I
We
don't think
need to-
anybody is suggesting they
Please,
are.
please,
I'm sorry,
please.
I'm sorry.
Landlords are not our enemies. We could probably go a long ways of solving the housing problem if we incorporated the landlords into the discussion. And I can tell you that as a landlord, I have never felt that. And I'm sure most landlords don't. We generally feel that we're being not heard or even listened to or taken for granted or used and abused. I would like to see us incorporate the thoughts of landlords into our decisions. Maybe do things that would help them, help us. We too often, I think, treat landlords as the enemy, and that's not what we should be doing.
And if that's how
I have
it
nothing
was
against this motion.
characterized,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
okay.
I have nothing against the motion, I'll vote for it. But I would like to see a balanced
Yeah,
review.
I expect the chamber will be involved, and the short-term rental industry does have representation, and they do pay attention when communities are exploring different options.
Mhm.
So I don't doubt that they'll be heard.
And one benefit we do have is that we are among, I think, the last communities of our kind to explore this. And so there have been many studies done, many regulations passed, registries created, things like that, that are going into effect, in effect, and are being studied as to their effects. So we won't have to reinvent the wheel on some of that stuff, which is a benefit.
But I do agree with you, Fred, that the public engagement piece of this is pretty important, including, landlords and what impacts it could potentially have. That's,
Yes.
I mean, I'll just say that I 100% agree, and with all the work I've done, in my opinion, this wouldn't be successful without including external stakeholders. And I've been part of exactly teams like this before, where of course landlords are part of the team, because you're not gonna have a fully encompassed policy or even way to attain the metrics that really is the first step. But what's the scoping study? I mean, the first step is figuring out the numbers and the data, and that's exactly what you're saying, and we've waited too long to get there, in my opinion. And I mentioned 2 weeks ago that there's grants that I know we cannot apply for, that maybe we would be able to put in proposals for, purely because we don't know the numbers. And, I mean, that's the first step, and in my opinion, just with my position, it's important to know those numbers, and I think that's
So
what
you're
saying.
talking about a registry?
No, we don't know. I mean, exactly what you're saying. We don't know how many houses are renting rooms or how many people are here. Everything that you brought up are the metrics that I'm talking about.
Yeah, registry is one option, but I don't know if that's the only option.
Yeah, for sure
I'm
it's
sure
not.
it's not the only option. And the only option might be just understanding the situation and, you know, letting current conditions go forward.
I'm good with this.
So, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
So we have York, the Northern Borders RC, Northern Borders Region, whatever, I'm not gonna remember it, but this is a wastewater grant that we applied for and did not receive last year.
Correct.
And we believe that there may be an opportunity to resubmit and hopefully get funding this year.
Yeah, I mean, in short, basically, we met with people from NBRC. There were some mistakes that we made in our proposal. In many ways, it actually ends up being a benefit. I can talk about that later. We think this is gonna be a really strong proposal. We still have not heard from USDA Road Development for the funding
Seriously?
package. Well, it's gonna be Friday at the earliest.
That's the decision that we had to respond by August
So
6th.
they
That's
extended,
correct.
they extended their deadline, okay.
And we can talk about it, I think I can update you on that a little bit, why. Essentially what this is a $2.35 million project that will extend the Irisville system that is part of the USDA package.
Phase one.
To bring, so that the school can be hooked up. That will include, for example, a new generator that is 25 years old, I believe, for the school.
A new generator?
That's my understanding, that we, as part of this 2.35 million, that they won't, we have to put a new generator in, which actually will be really good for the school, because the generator will have to be used for the pump house as backup. But this will be a generator that would also then work for the school, et cetera, moving forward, if any, when this generator ages out. I heard it's 25 years old. At any rate, and part of this importance is, you know, Fred's point, it's I think the only Red Cross emergency shelter in the valley. There's a lot of reasons that this proposal is gonna look really good. And it's an essential next step of the wastewater project. And so the pre-application is due Friday, and so I'm looking.
It's non-binding, right?
It's non-binding.
So, okay.
Right, and so essentially looking for that yellow light to put in a pre-application. I'm hoping to get that moved forward so that we can fully apply by pretty soon, like within a month of the pre-application.
yeah. So that funding would be, based on the feedback we've gotten, that funding would be specifically for that, what was originally considered the phase 2 to connect all the way down to the school.
Yeah, it's what NBRC is looking for is to be a big part of a component that is a component necessary for moving a project forward. And so phase 1, which we haven't talked about much, is what USDA is looking at funding. We're awaiting that package of grant mixed with loans. And Chach, I don't know if you know, the reason that they pushed us from August 6th is because 2 Fridays ago was the date that any town or county or state that received USDA funding but didn't use it went back into that bucket. And since they moved our project to the first in the state, they wanted to see that bucket to maybe accommodate our project to improve that funding package.
Awesome.
So that's very exciting, and as soon as I hear from USD and Road Development, you guys will hear. But yeah, so the Catalyst grant, I think to leverage that $1 million will be a really big step in our wastewater project.
And I haven't heard lately what the school district consolidation plans are, but there may be expansion plans for Waitsfield, which would require this.
My understanding is it would be impossible without the wastewater project.
Yeah, I think every option they proposed 6 months ago or whenever was included expansion of Waitsfield. And that expansion really can't happen. They don't have the wastewater capacity to do that expansion now. And the leach fields kind of wrap around the school building, so there's nowhere to put a new building or expand the current footprint of the building unless they get off of their own independent leach fields and onto the public system.
And again, there's
The
multiple,
public system exists.
And there, I mean, the other benefit is then you're already, if this goes through, and phase one goes through, then you have the line laid for all the infrastructure to each building, to that place, so that, you know, the funding team will be looking at a lot of this stuff. But this is a first step, and with the pre-application due on Friday, I'm looking for that, for the select board to say,
Authorization to move
okay,
forward, yeah.
yeah.
So moved. Please move forward.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'm good with the plan. I'm just taken back that they want to replace that generator. It's 20 years old.
I shouldn't say replace.
I'm just,
They won't,
'Cause
my
that-
understanding is the generator, they don't wanna use the generator for this new project, so maybe there'll be 2 generators. But the
I think-
importance of the pump station is so important.
Oh, yeah,
It
I'm-
needs to basically be a newer generator. Is that your
that's
understanding, Josh?
100,000 KW.
Yeah.
That generator's big enough to light up the village of Waitsfield.
For the record, I asked the exact same question you're asking, Fred.
I'm
And
I'm
me
not
last
against
week.
this proposal at all. I'm just taking that they want to not use that generator. It's been never really used.
Well, maybe we'll use it to light up the village.
And it's and it is serviced annually,
I'm sorry.
and it is serviced annually.
And its service annually has had a very good life.
Well, we'll figure out the
Yeah.
details. This is a pre-application.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have a motion?
Yeah,
And a
so I
second?
said so moved, that was incorrect. I would like to make a motion to authorize York to go ahead with that application, or
Second?
pre-application.
Fred? Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
And then we have another grant opportunity.
I'm gonna try to do this quick.
Okay.
So, the July 10th, 2023 flood was a natural disaster. The federal government gave money to the state. Recently, Washington County is getting a lot of money from that flood. Due to Waitsfield not getting hit very hard July 10th, 2023, there's limited ways we can use these funds. However, I met with the CDBG funder, and I said, however, I wanna make sure Waitsfield's included in this if we can. Is there any mitigation? The answer is yes, there is mitigation funds. In total, 4 million, I believe, of CDBG funds for Washington County. I brought up several ideas, and essentially if we can find a project within a certain area of Waitsfield Village, they would like to help Waitsfield with some mitigation. I've talked to Josh Rogers and Charlie Goodman, and the initial thought is the town pond, and maybe the culvert that goes under Carroll Road, would be, it is a time, the pond has kind of been encroached on by land, has essentially shrunk in size. Growing that back is important. The culvert is maybe reaching towards the end of its life. And so what I would like, so a pre-application went in for wastewater. And that was okay, and they were excited about it, but we couldn't find a nexus between the July 10, 2023 flood and Waitsfield. So because of that, we are here today. They're allowing that pre-application to be pivoted to this project for a culvert or the town pond. So essentially what I'm looking for is, are you okay with moving forward with this? There's still a lot of scoping to be done, to figure out the what's, the ifs, the costs, et cetera. And I really wanna work closely with the Irisville Village Master Plan to see if, in terms of mitigation efforts, if this town pond could be part of that, since we're looking at getting funds to maybe
Yeah.
increase the size. It could make a very strong proposal, I believe.
And you're not asking for, we're asking to schedule a hearing to get
I'm
more
asking-
information at that hearing, and we can pull the plug at that night if we decide
That is
this
true.
isn't working.
Yep, the application's due the very end of September,
Yeah.
maybe the 30th. But a public hearing would need to be September 22nd, which means the public notice would have to be in next week's paper.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I'm asking. And this is, the CDBG said basically, I'm gonna quote her because I don't wanna mess up. Find me a project of about $800,000 and we will see what we can do. And that's what I'm trying to do because Waitsfield needs the help.
Any
Financially.
discussion, any questions?
Was there any other potential uses considered, like get the pivot to create better nexus, but are there other options? I'm thinking of like the covered bridge or something like that might have a flood.
There might be,
Well,
yeah,
it's just-
I mean, Charlie Goodman's best answer was the town pond. Again, we have time to look at other options. It does, like I said, it has to be kind of in the area. CDBG seemed, as long as it's mitigation. And so any project that could be seen as mitigation for future flooding, I think would be applicable to this.
Have you looked at the local hazard mitigation plan to see if there's anything, I mean, they worked very hard on that. I don't know if there are specific areas that fall into or specific projects that were identified by the hazard mitigation plan.
Oh, yeah,
I don't remember in the village though.
in the village now.
Yeah.
And that's.
That's sort of the limiting,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's because of median incomes. That's the basis of this map that we're looking at.
We do have one spot just starting up Route 17, right on the Facein Waitsfield border on Mill Brook. This whole side hill there, which is also holding up the road up,
Yeah.
going up there, is sliding. And it's accelerating.
Yeah,
That is on the LHMP.
And that might be within that map area. I'd have to look closer, but
so can we warn the hearing and still look at options in the meantime, or does it have to cite a specific project?
I don't know. I just downloaded the recommended CDBG public notice, so I'd have to look at it closer. But we have till next Tuesday, Wednesday to look at a plan, and I think that's enough time to maybe come up with a pretty good proposal idea, potentially. So any direction you wanna give.
You can look at how, you're gonna look at how specific it needs to be, whether there can be multiple
Yeah.
options on there in the
And
one.
it might, if, let's say we can't do the culvert under Carroll Road, and all we could do is the pond, and that would be good. And let's say that's $200,000, I'm making up money. But we could do another, I mean, if mitigation's the plan and we can show that it will help in A, B, C, D, D ways, and putting in addition that the pond may help with mitigation for creating new housing, I mean, you can add a lot of layers to this,
Yeah.
could look really good.
I love that connection between the Irisville master planning and the potential mitigation projects, looking for mitigation opportunities for wetlands that might be, what do they call them, the low functioning wetlands. If increasing the storage capacity of the pond, for example, helps as a offset to, developing on low functioning wetlands, that's awesome. That's like a triple benefit for the town.
Yeah.
If it would facilitate the Irisville master plan permitting.
And maybe you could, the hearing, we could identify a couple of projects. You just have to have a hearing on the project, we don't have to submit an application. So if there are options, because I agree with Josh, I also, I've worried about that slumping bank for a long time. It's up behind Valley Mead, Gallagher's, Irving Oil.
Bragg
It's
Hill,
pretty
Oh,
obvious.
yeah.
Behind,
Bragg Hill, right?
yeah,
Well,
it just,
Bragg Hill Road is someday gonna be impacted
yeah.
by this bank that's slushing away with every rain event. Not to mention that if too much of that hill slushes off at once, it'll dam Mill Brook, and we got ourselves a real flooding problem there. And it's something that we'll have to work with Facein on, because it's just about on the border.
I'm not sure that's included in the map, the low to moderate income area.
These are further up.
Where's the bridge?
That
Bragg
area.
Hill Road.
Yeah,
So-
17 Bridge.
Just off.
17 Bridges.
17 Bridge is here.
Okay. So,
The
yes.
purple is the,
I think the purple is also the yellow.
Oh, see that
I
gray
think it
spot?
goes like
That
this.
might be it.
Okay.
because we're
I
talking
feel
about.
left
And
out.
it's getting worse all the time.
I'll show you, I'll show you.
That's okay, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway is,
Not far out west.
What's that?
We should have been talking about this.
Yeah.
I know. So I think the
Yes.
takeaway is that you need not a specific project?
I
Do we
think
need to
I
identify
mean-
a specific project today?
I mean,
or-
if an application's due the end of September, and the application's gonna take me a lot of time, I mean, I'm gonna have to have a project sooner than later. We don't need it now, but I suspect having it by the time I put out the public notice next week for Thursday's paper, I think having a good idea of what the project will be is, I think,
Right,
A good idea.
but I don't think that's impossible for us to come up with.
yeah.
Um,
So right now, you just need approval from the select board to essentially amend the current application or something, or what
Or
would you
to
call it?
schedule a hearing on an amended application.
Well, we had a pre-application that was approved, they've already said we can move forward with the amended application.
Okay.
Essentially allowing us to say, yes, let's schedule a public hearing. At this point, I can't tell you exactly what the project will be, because all the ideas are good. But by next Thursday, hopefully when the paper comes out, it will be more clear of what the project, of what the proposal will be. Because I've just spent the rest of September to put in the proposal by September 30th,
Yeah.
which is
So
gonna be.
are folks comfortable authorizing York to research the options that were discussed and to warn a hearing for the most promising one?
I'd so move as stated.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thanks.
You're stating motions very well tonight.
I know.
Next item, just at the last meeting, to reminder, we talked about updating ordinances. The traffic ordinance was at the top of the list to put their speed limits back on, to put the weight limit on the bridge. York, you worked on that, it was more complicated than you had thought, so we're not ready for that tonight. We're also going to be warning the ordinance to eliminate the garage sale ordinance.
I've seen it posted.
That's
So that's been posted.
I hope so, I spent
Yes,
a
yes,
lot
it's
of
there.
work.
Yep,
Um,
I've seen it.
But we do have a recurring request to place a stop sign at the end of the end of Butcher House Road at the intersection with Dugway Road. And do folks know where that is?
Yes.
Mhm.
It's a private road. York, you mentioned that you've gotten some conflicting information from VLCT and the Sheriff's Department as far as what the town's,
That's correct.
want to explain that?
VLCT essentially said, when the road was put in, there should be an access permit, what we would probably call the curb cut permit. In that, there should have been recommendations for a stop sign or not a stop sign. I have not been able to find that, but there's one other idea of where maybe I could find it. I mean, we're talking early 70s, that we decided, early to mid 70s.
Probably mid to late 70s.
And however, it's a private road, so it's not, and my understanding is from you or Josh Rogers, that there's not a stop sign at the bottom of any private road. I don't know if that's true. But essentially what VLCT said, if the private landowners want to put a stop sign there, since a T is automatically supposed to be a stop, There are some people that are not using that as a stop, and so they'll just take a left onto Dugway. The private landowners could put a stop sign there. If the town so wants to put the stop sign there, according to VLCT, I'm sure, they basically said, I'm sure the private landowners would be very appreciative of us doing that for them. The sheriff's department worried about liability if there was an accident.
Why would the town be liable
I don't
if somebody
know.
ran through a stop sign?
I sent an email to the sheriff's department about multiple things, and one of our sheriffs that works in Waitsfield came to the office, and I wasn't there, and talked to Jen. So that was the information I got. They have not emailed you back.
So I'm gonna just suggest two things. One, there are two driveways off of Butcher House Road. There's a storage building right close to Dugway that Brothers Buildings owns and uses, and there's my house. And for whatever reason, about a year or two ago, the Butcher House Road goes towards the river, towards my house, and then bends up to the left into the apartments. And my driveway goes straight back to the river. They decided to put a stop sign on their road at my driveway. The downstreet.
Downstreet apartment, okay.
So I don't know how that came about or why. It's very unusual to have a stop sign on a road serving 24 units to stop for a driveway, serving a house. But they did it. It was on my list today to call them and see if they would move that stop sign down to the end of the Dugway Road. And I got my schedule was totally derailed today with cybersecurity. So I would suggest we table that until I get in touch with them and see if they'll do that. And then the second thing is the folks who recently, in the last 2 years, bought the house at the corner of Butcher House and Dugway, did a lot of clearing and landscaping. It looks really good. They did a great job. I never understood why they wouldn't open up their house to the southern exposure, and these folks finally did. But there are some wildflowers, and I don't know what
They look like
species
Queen
they
Anne's
are.
lace, but
I'm not sure, but
There's
they're
something that
over.
looks like Queen Anne's lace that's really not friendly, I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Goutweed.
Oh, I knew the name of it.
Yeah,
it might be.
That's the
but
worst.
it's overgrown, and it's interfering with the sight distance. It's within the right of way. If Josh could get a weed
I
whacker.
talked to Charlie Goodman on Friday, and he said he would be happy to have the road crew in the right of way get that down.
Okay, so that will really improve it, because you can see coming, you do have sight distance if the vegetation was cleared. And then that would be a short-term measure to improve safety, and we'll see if we can get them to relocate the stop sign. Does that sound like a plan?
So do you want me to move forward with that mowing down or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, Charlie and I kind of already agreed it
Yeah,
made
I don't
sense.
think we need a motion or anything for that. And then next item is vacancies and appointments.
I just wanted to, it's getting late, but I didn't think this meeting was gonna be very long. I was very wrong. I asked Fred, cause Fred is really on top of these things. He did send an email to me this morning or yesterday with some ideas. I would like to make sure that we have full commissions, et cetera, and if there's a way for me to move forward. I'll just say Fred, tree warden, inspector of lumber, the second constable, an assistant emergency management coordinator. We need a trustee of the cemetery fund, and I think that's right. And our LEMP needs an emergency shelter manager, an assistant emergency shelter manager, and a debris manager. Which,
I have a question.
yes,
Have we posted these in any public way and said, looking for volunteers?
and that's what I would like to do, on the website, maybe in the Valley Reporter, maybe on the Front Porch Forum, I don't know, but I didn't wanna do it without your direction.
Yeah, I would do that, and maybe do something a little bit more than, do the Front Porch Forum, but like an article, something in the Valley Reporter that's kinda eye-catching and talks about,
Service to
servicing
community.
your community, there's
Yeah.
plenty of opportunities. We especially need an animal control
Yeah,
officer.
I feel like of the kind.
Should we skip to roosters right now?
No, please don't.
No, don't go to-
Please don't.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, I think doing something, a little bit more than just a bland public notice, but something that's is a little bit, catches people's imagination.
More jazzy.
That's exciting.
It could be
I
a
accept.
picture of General Waite in the Uncle Sam and said Waitsfield needs him.
Needs you.
Yes, there we go.
General Waite needs you.
That's actually not a terrible idea.
I can, like, I just hope that I send this to Lisa Loomis and she's like, I got it, I've got to call you. Cause those are the best. And she like texts like, I need to talk. And just send her this with no explanation.
I didn't know the tree warden was right.
So.
I thought it was Leo, but maybe he's.
Well, I feel a
No,
little
we
guilty
don't have a
about
tree
that.
warden, no, yeah.
Okay.
It was Leo
It was Leo for years.
for years. And I went to a seminar that talked about the new job description for the tree warden. And I discussed it with Leo, and he promptly resigned.
Oh no.
And I've always felt bad about that, because Leo is so terrific.
That's
Yes.
So whoever does decide to be the tree warden, there is some training, and there is, as I remember, the intent was for the tree warden to work with Public Works about cutting trees in town right of ways.
That's another
New
suggestion.
criteria that the legislature had set up.
That's right, because the tree warden description hadn't been updated in 100 years, and about 4 years ago,
Yeah,
we made changes, I forgot about that.
and I've always felt bad.
Just a suggestion to have a place where we could have the open positions, maybe hyperlink to a description of their responsibilities.
Yeah.
Priority amongst all those, and they're all important, but for me it would be the animal control officer, because it's been essentially vacant for a while now. And I'm just curious whether, that just seems like a different order of magnitude of service relative to the other positions.
Yeah.
It's kind of this frontline public safety, confrontational with animals and people and their owners. Feels like just saying, hey, who's gonna volunteer?
Yeah, I
We're gonna be in
agree.
our
Maybe
same
do
position.
Yeah,
something, a separate
For-
outreach around that one, that's a little bit more.
I wonder also,
First.
do we need a different model of
Yeah, that's
compensation or something where we're asking to do in that role something way more than,
Yeah.
And that is
Any of these other
$1,000, that's
volunteer
$1,000
positions.
paid position.
Per year.
It went
Right?
from-
Is that right, Fred?
It went
Yeah.
from 700 to 1,000.
Well, you know, the old ACO might have stayed if he was offered $1,000.
Well, it is $1,000. I'll just say,
You didn't hear what I said. You didn't hear what I just said.
Fred's
well,
coming
you were
back!
offered $1,000. Fred actually has been doing the job. And Fred and I talked today, and for a subject not to be spoken. And with the agreement that, like, we would look into the ordinance and not necessarily make a new ordinance, but that there are some amendments that are
We
needed.
need an amendment.
But Fred has been doing the job without being compensated, even $1.
Which is a whole separate problem.
Let's talk.
Are we
So do you
open
want that
to-
to be like a separate, like, almost article? Like, the commissions are a different story than.
Yeah, I mean,
there's the
commissions can
constable.
be jazzy and, help, but the
Yeah.
AOC it's more responsibility, really.
And the
it's-
constable? But those are kind of similar.
That
I'm
was
not
a
as
fun
worried about
Slodian
the second
start there.
constable, because we
Yeah.
have the constable,
Okay.
which
Yeah,
we have
we're-
budgeted.
We're good there, I think. I really do.
I'm not sure we ever had a second constable, we might
Oh,
have.
years ago, but, we were lucky to get Jeff to be our main
Yeah.
constable, and he serves.
Although we have not
We-
asked much of him.
No, we've been
I've never
fortunate.
talked to him.
We've been
Since the
fortunate.
covered bridge, I think was the last time we.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. But he's there when we do
Yeah.
need, because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
And he's a good backup for the animal control. officer.
Similar to animal
No,
control,
he's
you never
not.
know.
No, he's not.
He's not?
Because when we hired him, that was one of his stipulations, that he wasn't gonna chase dogs or other furry animals or feathery animals.
Okay.
Would he chase people who are having issues with dogs?
Yeah, I don't know.
And do dogs include other
The intent
poultry,
was
for
that he was
example?
gonna work close with the ACO.
Sorry, Josh, I cut you.
That
No,
was
I'm
the
just
intent.
wondering if there's a funding model that might get more interest among the public if we did that. keep the $1,000 and do a per
incident.
call fee or something like that, so that role you're kind of asked to be on call forever, or 24/7 when something happens, but you never know, is it gonna be, 1 a month or 10 a month?
That was what I was gonna ask, is what's the estimate of calls, hours per
That's a good idea.
month, year? Probably more in the summer, I imagine, right?
Yeah, when people are out on the trails and stuff. It has really decreased in the last couple of years, and I don't really know why. I wrote it up in my report, for the town report. And the THO has not received as many bite reports as previous. It used to be really a problem, at least once a month.
Oh, wow.
I've found just
I
spending
don't know
time
how.
on trails that people leash their dogs way better than they used to.
I think that the strong stance that this board has taken on animal control, specifically dog control, has had a good effect upon the community.
Yeah.
That might be something to publicize, that it's not.
It's gone down.
It's not 10 a month, it's like once a quarter or whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot less than what it used to be.
Because I think that the perception scares people off, that it's a significant caseload or workload, and this is happening all the time. It's not great,
The
a selling point.
It's not what it used to be. The job description that was last posted did a good job of scaring people away.
Yeah.
We need to rework it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
I
need
like,
to
I
rework
like
it.
that idea of compensation for calls or something. I don't know what that would look like. I'm sure other communities have done it. But if I were looking, I could appreciate that, because it is a hard job, and it's 24/7.
So is there any specific,
So you've got our direction to move forward.
I appreciate you humor.
Consent agenda, have a motion?
Pete Reynolds does want to be on the Water Commission, right?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
So,
He's
you
there
wanna
now.
pull that? I talked to him, and he went off because Robin's term expired, his term expired, so he just thought, well, Robin brought me on, I guess I gotta go now. And his one caveat was he spends some time in Florida during the winter, and I said, yeah, we can Zoom you in or give us a meeting, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, motion on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to
Second?
pass the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Select board roundtable?
Quick question, are all the roadsides gonna get mowed again this year?
I don't know. I know when I talked to Taylor this before July 4th, when he was doing it, I think he said he likes to do it twice a year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I can check in with Josh. And
I know the schedule is tight, but if that's something that he could do, it would be appreciated. People have asked me.
I had two really quick things. One is that I'm trying to find a time in September to meet again with some of the folks from Warren and Moortown about the sort of tri-town effort on sort of Pony Farm to North to Common to East Warren Road and making it more bicycle and pedestrian friendly. No specific actions or anything. It's just we're having conversations, and I feel like having intertown cooperation is a great thing. And I'm also getting a better sense of what other towns have already done that I wasn't personally aware of, like traffic calming studies in Warren and things like that, that maybe aren't directly applicable, but are good to know exist. The other thing, is that I'm trying to find the bylaws for the General White House Commission. Because I feel like if we're trying to make sure that it's an even playing field for all of the people who are serving the community there, I just want to make sure that that is systemically set up in the bylaws, and I can't remember what they say.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay. That's all I got.
I think a revisit's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Now that it's a relatively new
Include,
commission.
I would ask you to include Anne Marie in this.
Oh, absolutely. I actually texted her before
Okay.
I came. Yep.
And that trail route that you just mentioned, it's called the Old Stage Road.
The old stage road.
That's
Oh.
the original
Yeah.
line through the valley, because Route 100 with all the bridges and everything was impassable. So the stage route, literally horse and stagecoach, that's the route that they took, and it dumped off into Granville Gulf.
Oh, great.
I talked to Donnie Wexler the other day, he was excited about the conversation.
Oh, good.
More time, it's like.
Yeah, I owe them notes. We're hoping to meet with Candace White at some point. She's on the transportation subcommittee to get a little bit more information about whether or not there's a possibility for more local sort of down regulating of speed limits in places that historically we have to get permission from the state, even though the town owns the road. Yeah, I don't fully understand it, but sort of.
Have you ever sat in on the active transportation corridor meeting?
I have not yet.
Like I did a week or two ago. It is quite the group of people.
Oh,
Candace is on it.
I'm well aware.
It is
I-
very impressive group of people.
Yeah, Jonathan does, that's his.
Nothing for me tonight.
Nothing.
Town administrator report.
Okay, let's make this quick. Butternut Hill, I just wanna say that, Josh and his entire crew, we really were fortunate to get a A&R permit to work around Butternut Hill. A&R said that we had to work around Butternut Hill culvert to clean up debris after the May 17th flood. And so that's happening today. They moved about 150 to 200 cubic yards of gravel today, from Butternut to the gravel pit. And that's gonna extend into tomorrow, probably equal amount, and also clearing the culvert. The culvert's a 4-foot culvert that, as Charlie Goodman puts it, essentially right now is a 2-foot culvert. So, and I talked to the Chief Jared Young this afternoon, and he's gonna bring his crew out there tomorrow, the next day, to help finish clearing that culvert of debris, so it can act as a 4-foot culvert.
Are they doing the other culvert as well under?
That is the hope, yeah.
Okay, and then are they building a barrier?
I've talked to Josh about it, he said yes.
Okay.
We have not revisited in like a week and a half, but that was the expectation. The elevator is being repaired tomorrow, so that's great. I do apologize for the traffic ordinance update, it's just there's, I wanna make sure we do it right. Cause there's actually multiple layers and things that are missing, and it's time to revisit it. And I'm really trying to coordinate with the sheriff's department to make sure we do it right. I won't talk about the noise complaint. Fred and
I just figured that.
well, Fred is gonna act as the animal officer and go talk to the person with the roosters. Fred and I have a plan for moving forward that works within our current ordinance to ensure that it's adhered to, and respecting the neighbors and the individual that the complaint was against.
I need that information though, the contact information.
Yes, thank you.
If we don't have to deal with that, that's fine.
Yes, Dana Hill was graded, which was great, you guys approved it last time, and Josh thought it was really cool, I missed the name, but one of the Kingsberries did it himself. They did have to add, and I approved the addition of rolling, cause the guy that did it was really afraid that if it rained heavy, it would be for naught in certain places.
And just by the way, Rush Dallin participates in a Thursday evening Spanish conversation meeting at the library.
I love that.
And he's,
There's one for French on Tuesdays, just FYI.
my wife doesn't like French, she speaks Spanish.
Of course.
And he's hosting the group for dinner this Thursday at his cabin at the end of Dana Hill.
And that was not gonna happen otherwise, maybe?
He's very happy.
I figured. Is it okay if I cover the FEMA stuff? Is now good, or do you wanna wait? It's pretty late.
How do folks feel?
Let's plow through.
Yeah, there's good news.
Yeah.
Alright, so
Good news.
FEMA, I'm just gonna say, long story short, it's been a lot of work. I think Christine worked hard on the FEMA reimbursement from July 10th, 2024 flood. Brian worked hard, Josh Rogers worked hard. I picked up where they left off.
JB and I pitched in a couple of times.
JB,
Yeah.
Thank you. And so, long story short, very long story short, we believe, as of now, that FEMA is going to work on replacing the 2 culverts that were put in. If you remember, culverts were washed out in Old Center Face and Center Face Road. Josh put in 2 culverts that were twice the size of the ones that were there. The H&H studies that we requested and that were done, that are in the meeting packet, both said that those were inadequate, so were temporary. So we will not be reimbursed for those. There is a process moving forward for where we could have been reimbursed, but that's okay. As of now, FEMA is asking if we need an engineer to engineer the 2 culverts. I've reached out to Tyler, who's our town engineer, and asked him. I think Charlie Goodman and I have talked, and we're pretty sure that the Old Center Face one will need to be engineered. That will be paid for by FEMA, as the plan goes now. And then the 2 culverts, once the engineer work is done, and then permitting through A&R, they will fund the culverts that need to go in. That includes a box culvert at Old Center Facein Road that I hear is very expensive, approximately $800,000, which clearly was never going to be done. And you know, I've talked to A&R, I've talked to V-Trans, I've talked to FEMA and said, you know, this will not get done without assistance. No town would be able to do this. And so actually our person, Mo, with FEMA, worked really hard to work with her supervisors so that we could get to the place we're at now. And you know, I went downstairs after the meeting with my arms up because it felt like a huge success. And I think that's super exciting.
Would we be able to reuse the 8-foot culverts if we're pulling them out?
I would assume so.
Rebought them.
Seemed like,
Yeah, I feel like that can
Yeah.
be something that we pay
Pull
for
them out
to
without
future projects,
damaging.
hopefully.
Yeah, that's a really good
In
point.
the Meadow Road Bridge?
The Meadow Road, oh, thank you. And the Meadow Road Bridge, we're still waiting for the inspection for V-Trans. When that comes in, depending on what it says, we'll determine next steps. But because of the new plan of hoping to just rerun the supports that are grading, that will take engineering work. But FEMA, we thought for a while we weren't gonna get any money from FEMA. We're back to thinking we will. It's somewhere in the $30,000 range. And so as of now, FEMA thinks that the project will probably be not reimbursable, but applicable to get the $30-ish thousand, depending on the inspection report, et cetera. It could end up being more, is my point. 30,000 should be the minimum, as long as we don't just replace the bridge, which in the next 10 years is unlikely. Is there any questions about that? Are there any questions?
Good work.
Yeah.
It felt pretty exciting. I think that's the gist, so thank you.
Did the town garage RFP go out?
Yes, it's been out, it's been advertised in the reporter, it's on the VLCT site. And I also, thanks to Tyler, our town engineer, supplied like 7 or so firms, and so I also sent it to them, and I've heard back from I think 3, saying that they're interested. And I think because of our discussion on the timeline, knowing that we're not really in a rush, I think the timeline that I created is ample room for any firm that's interested to come up with a plan and submit a proposal.
Thanks. We have hopefully a brief executive session.
Mhm.
Have a motion to go into executive session to deal with personnel matters.
I would move that we go into executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A3, employee consideration or personnel matters.
Second? Oh, sorry, second? All in favor?
Aye.
You raised your hand, so I just raised my hand.
While York packs up, I'm just gonna run downstairs really quickly.
Me too.